So we've got a new GoPro product to talk about here, and that product is the brand new Volta. To be clear, this is the Volta, not the Travolta.
This car could be systematic, hydromatic, ultramatic.
But let's talk about what this product is, what it does, and if it's worth the cost. So first of all, what is the cost of the GoPro Volta? GoPro Volta here can be purchased from GoPro for $130. But if you are a GoPro subscriber, there is a significant discount on here. It is only $90 if you're a GoPro subscriber. So that's a full $40 off. It's a great deal. I did pick mine up for the subscriber price, and spoiler alert, I do think it's worth it for $90. Next, what is the Volta? So the best way that I would describe the Volta is it is the equivalent of 3 of the GoPro Enduro batteries built into here. And it's also a tripod. So you've got the tripod here. You can have your GoPro mounted on it. It'll sit on the tripod. And third, it's also a remote. You see the buttons right here. So basically, it's those 3 things built into one device. So GoPro does say you should be able to get about 4 hours of recording time total out of this, combined with your GoPro with a battery in it. And they also say that 4 hours of recording time is at 5.3K, 24 frames per second. Now, if you were to max out the GoPro Hero 10 to the 5.3K 60 frames per second, it's probably gonna look more like 3.5 hours of recording time. Still, that's a lot of recording time, and that would probably be good for a full day's adventure. And one item that is important to note about the Volta is it is only compatible with the Hero 10 and the Hero 9. It's not compatible with other GoPros, even though theoretically, it does have the GoPro mount here, and it could connect via USB-C, but GoPro does not have a firmware update for the other GoPro cameras that will allow it to support this. Which, by the way, it is important to note that if you get the Volta, you do need to be running the latest firmware version on the Hero 9 and the Hero 10. If you own a 10 and you haven't already updated it, this will prompt you to update your firmware before you can use it. It will not work with the Volta until you update your firmware. Which I have a recent video on firmware version 1.40 where I talk about the different features in that firmware update. I definitely encourage you to check it out if you haven't already. So let's take a closer look at the Volta here. So let's talk about what else comes with the Volta. The Volta, of course, comes in this box right here. You get a few manuals that show you how to use it and some of the features. It does also come with a USB pass-through door, which is great. If you don't already own one of these, GoPro sells this for, I believe, like $20. I already own one, but it's great because you can put it on to your Hero 10 right here, clips into place, and then it's just got the opening for the USB-C cable. So while it's not waterproof, it would protect your camera from things like rain or snow from getting in there, because the only thing that will fit in here is your USB-C cable on the Volta here. In addition, it does come with a GoPro thumb screw, and it also comes with a USB to USB-C charging cable. Which, by the way, when you need to charge this, the way you're gonna charge it is right here. There's a rubber door, and right there's a USB-C port. Now, when you do charge this, you could plug it into a computer via the USB to USB-C cable, but I recommend using a wall charger. And specifically, there's an Anker wall charger that I own that I use for charging my GoPro devices, and it charges them very quickly. And I tested that in here, I plugged it into here, plugged it into the wall outlet. It charged this up in about an hour and a half total from it being fully drained to the top. So that's a pretty fast charge time. I believe GoPro says if you use their supercharger, it takes about 2 to 2.5 hours to charge this, so that's important to keep in mind. It also does have a status light here, which when it's fully charged, it's gonna have 5 lights that are lit up here, and each of those lights represents 20% of the charge of the battery in here. So when you're down to 4 lights, you're at 80, when you're at 3, you're at 60, and so forth. So what I did with the Volta is I mounted my GoPro on here, and I took it out, and I did quite a few tests on it. And I found that it worked quite well. I got it paired with the Bluetooth, and I did tinker around with the rotation on here. I did find that the rotation is nice and good, it locks into place well, and it's got just that right amount of tension when you want to turn the camera. Things can get a little bit awkward when you're rotating though. This cable continues to get stretched further and further around. And my concern is if you keep rotating it too much in that direction, the cable could get pulled too much. And my concern is the USB-C connector could break off in the port on the camera. And I think that would be something rather catastrophic. So I would say I do not recommend turning this more than 3 or 4 turns in one direction, which would be the maximum number of turns. If you need to go back to a different alignment, turn it back in the direction you turned it from. Don't keep turning it more and more in the same direction, whether that be clockwise or counterclockwise. Otherwise, I'm pretty sure something is gonna snap here and it's not gonna be good. This does also support you putting the GoPro into the media mod. Now, GoPro does have a creator's kit that they're selling right now, and it includes the Volta, it includes the media mod, and it includes the light that goes in the media mod. So if you don't already own the Hero 10 and you're looking to upgrade, the combined price of all of those together is a great value. So you may want to check that out if you're considering upgrading to the Hero 10. It is an incredible value for all of these things in one bundle. So you can indeed put the camera in the media mod and attach the media mod to the Volta. I did some testing with that as well. Things look a little bit messy when you have that external microphone plugged into there as well, but there is that 3.5mm jack, and that does not get in the way of the USB-C cord plugging in. And all of the cables do stay out of the way. And one of the advantages of Volta with that type of setup, you don't have to hit the record button on the camera, which is kind of blocked by that microphone receiver sometimes. All you have to do is hit the record button on the remote right here. Easy enough. Speaking of remote, this does function as an external remote as well. So if you wanted your GoPro set up on a tripod, like say 50 feet away from you, and you wanted to hit record, you can do that. You just have to make sure that you pair this to Bluetooth on the camera, which is really easy. All you have to do is go to the main menu, go to Preferences, and when you go to the pairing option, it's gonna list Volta as an option to pair to. The camera will see it, it's really easy. And I tried using this as an external remote for the GoPro, it worked flawlessly. There were no issues at all, so that was great to see. And a small tip on that, if you have the USB-C cable hanging out, it's a good idea to plug this into the port on the Volta. If you plug it in just like that, it keeps it from hanging out and getting in the way, and it makes it a much better remote type of option. So it fits a lot better in the hand. There's not this awkward cable just flapping around when you're trying to use this. By the way, when I first saw the Volta, it made me think of this. This is the Karma Grip. If you've been using GoPros for a while, you probably remember this. Now, at first I got kind of excited because I thought, hey, maybe the Volta is a gimbal as well. Because there are use cases for using a gimbal with a GoPro. That's something that I've illustrated in some of my videos that involve low light or for that beyond cinematic footage. If you haven't checked out those videos, I've linked to them above. Unfortunately, the Volta is not a gimbal, but it does have a tripod mount under here. So technically, if you had a heavy-duty enough gimbal, you could mount the Volta on the gimbal, and then you could have the GoPro on top of the Volta. Now, I think that would get pretty crazy, and it might be a little bit tricky to balance, but you could do that. So something to keep in mind. So let's ask that final question. Is the GoPro Volta worth it? So if you do a little bit of math, like I said, the USB pass-through door here is $20. The equivalent of 3 of these batteries would add up to $75. So right there, you're already at $95. In addition, this also will function as a small tripod. That would be a replacement for Shorty, which, by the way, this is a convenient use case for shooting time lapses or night lapses. This would function as external power. And if you're doing a time lapse in the photo mode where it's taking like one photo every 15 seconds or 30 seconds, you would be able to shoot a time lapse or night lapse for several hours before the battery in here and in the GoPro would run out. So kind of liking the use case for that too. This little tripod is handy if you're out there vlogging on your own and you want to get some shots at some different angles. Like you could set this on the ground pointed up at you, talking to the camera, or you could set this up on a wall someplace, something like that, that's at eye level. There are a lot of use cases for this. So it would not be a replacement for something like El Grande here, which can go way out. But it would be a good replacement for Shorty, something to keep in mind. And Shorty goes for about $20 as well, I believe. Then of course, if you use this as a remote and don't already own the remote, the GoPro remote is pretty pricey. If I recall correctly, I think that's about $60 to $70, maybe a little bit more. But that's when you start to add up to over $130 pretty quickly. Now, if you are a GoPro subscriber and you get this for $90, I definitely consider it worth the $90. If you get it for the full price of $130, you might want to think a little bit more about it and think about the convenience factor and not having to change a battery each time it runs out and pop in a new one, especially if you're in the middle of filming something. And if you did have the GoPro in the media mod, that's when things start to get a little bit tricky to replace the battery. Because what you have to do, first of all, is you're gonna have to undo the thumb screw. So you've got it tightened to something, you're gonna have to undo the thumb screw. If you have an external microphone on here, you're gonna have to disconnect that from the 3.5mm jack. If you've got a USB-C cable plugged in, you gotta disconnect that as well, because then you have to open up the media mod, and this side faces outward, so that's not the battery side, so you have to pop this out fully. And then finally you get to your battery there. Then you pop in a new one, then you put this back into the media mod, close it up, you mount it back on whatever you had it on, put the thumb screw in, you reconnect your USB-C cable, and you reconnect your external mic. It is a couple-minute process to swap out a battery when you've got it in the media mod. So just something to keep in mind. There is a convenience factor there too. How much value you assign that convenience factor, that is largely up to you. For $90, I do recommend the Volta. I think it's great. It feels solid, it feels good in the hand. You can rotate this, as I showed in my video, and it functions as a remote. It's nice, you can switch the modes here, you can hit record. So all in all, I like the Volta. I think GoPro is doing well with that innovation, and I've heard a rumor that 2022 is going to offer a lot more from GoPro. Possibly several more cameras, and maybe some other types of devices as well. So it's going to be an exciting year for those of you that are GoPro owners. If you have any questions about the Volta, definitely hit me up, and I'd love to answer those for you. And until we talk again, happy GoProing.